A San Antonio mother is caught in the crossfire of a fight between her son and another man. The two men got into an argument near a home on Arizona, and it quickly escalated. Erica Zuko is live in the medical center this morning. And Erica, do we know how that woman is doing?
Well, she's likely expected to be okay, Audrey, but this is the third shooting that we're covering this morning. We wanted to break down a little bit about what we know so far. Not a whole lot of details to go around here, but police say that shooting happened around 4:30 this morning. They say that two men were fighting, as you mentioned, on Arizona Street. That fight escalated, and at least one of the men shot the other. They hit that man 3 times, a man in his 30s, but they say that his mother, who is in her 50s, was caught in the crossfire. They're being hit in the shoulder. At this point, they say that the suspect ran away from the scene. We don't really have a description of that person nor the identities of either of the two people who were shot. But again, another serious situation happening there overnight. We'll keep you posted on the details as we learn more and any suspect description that they may be looking for. Back to you guys.